Good evening. This is Mayor Kevin Smith, and this is my State of the City for 2021. My first State of the City I did at the community college. It was probably a little bit more interesting with charts and so forth. Last year during the pandemic, I submitted it in writing. This year I'm submitting it in writing and also reading it on something I didn't know anything about last year. Called Zoom. So I want you to know we will later post this on our city webpage. So if you don't want to sit through this and would like to have a copy of it, we will try to get that up as soon as possible. For those who do sit through this, thank you for your patience and attention. But this is the State of the City for 2021. I'm Mayor Kevin Smith. It's March 31st, 2021, a year of crisis and opportunity. I submit this address to the members of the Helena-West City Council, our city treasurer, city clerk, city attorney, and to our citizens. This is the annual report regarding the status of our city and covers the highlights of the last year since the last annual report submitted a year ago today. We did not know last year, as we entered a new decade, what a challenge the coming year would prove to be. The last 12 months have seen multiple crises, including the COVID-19 pandemic, a series of record-setting historic weather events highlighted by the presidentially declared national disaster during Easter, ice and snowstorms, challenges both national and local regarding race relations, and two major municipal water emergencies. Tragically, this year, we also saw the loss of Officer Travis Wallace, one of our own, and the first police officer killed in the line of duty here in over 20 years. It has also been a year of newfound unity and common ground, of shared hardship and new opportunities. First, let's review the year. Last year, I reported that from 50 to 100 citizens died here in the Spanish flu pandemic a century ago. In 2020, on April 4th, our city was one of the last cities on the Mississippi River to see our first case of COVID. On April 12th last year, we were among the last on the river to see our first fatality from COVID. Today, March 31st, 2021, our total pandemic numbers for Phillips County, according to the Arkansas Department of Health, are as follows: 37 fatalities, 1,737 total cumulative cases, and 1,697 recovered cases. I'm very happy to say that our current active cases in Phillips County now total only 2. By comparison, our neighbors in Cahoma County across the river have had 75 deaths, 78 cases. In Bolivar County, Mississippi, south of the river, there have been 125 deaths, south of the bridge, rather. There have been 125 deaths and 4,749 cases. In Lee County to our north in Arkansas, there have been 34 deaths and 1,655 cases. And in Arkansas County to our southwest, 36 deaths and 2,072 cases. Clearly then, our city's early and rapid public response to this pandemic helped save lives. We declared a public health emergency the day after the governor did. We appointed a local pandemic task force that has met nearly every week since. We began a rigorous virus testing program, adopted curfews, closed parks, approved mask ordinances, enforced state mandated requirements by closing events that exceeded the number allowed to congregate, and much, much, much more. Meanwhile, our public health workers here have been our frontline heroes, exposing themselves to much danger to help keep the rest of us safe. And I want to say a special word of thanks to them. and what they mean to us. Today, it is a race against the clock. Unlike last year, we now have several vaccines to immunize our citizens against this virus. Presently, Governor Hutchinson has activated the Army National Guard, and they're here in our town now with the Arkansas Health Department to vaccinate us and our community. They're here all week. In addition, our local pharmacists, the Helena Regional Hospital, UAMS East, East Arkansas Family Health Clinic, Walmart, and many others have worked hard to help get us safe once again. We remain vigilant as new variants of the virus are spread and students and others return from spring break. We aren't out of this yet. We are trying quickly to get enough citizens vaccinated and so we can finally win the war against this virus. Governor Hutchinson has removed the state mask mandate and is opening up vaccinations to all age 16 and over. We are keeping all local mandates in place, meanwhile, until we are confident a second spike of the virus cannot shut us down all over again. This is where we are today. It is my prayer that we see no more deaths here and we can get this behind us. Natural disasters. This has been a year for unprecedented natural disasters. On April 12th, a Sunday evening, our city and county were hit with straight line winds that in minutes devastated most of our city. This storm led to a presidentially declared national disaster for us and for Phillips County, destroyed many homes, some of our oldest structures, including 2 buildings on Cherry Street and the historic Centennial Baptist Church. In the first hour after the storm, electricity was out everywhere. Roads were blocked going into and out of our hospital. Our 911 system, emergency system was down, our police radio system, all our telephones were down, even cellular service was knocked out in those early moments of confusion. Many cars, homes, people were blocked in by fallen trees. Streets were blocked off by trees and live electric lines that were sparking in the streets. It was one of the longest nights of my life as I drove around the dark and dangerous and tree-littered streets. But I was encouraged because within minutes, our first responders, our street crews, and many, many volunteers were out removing trees and assisting those who were in immediate danger. I saw some of the best sides of our community that day and in coming days. Within those days, hundreds of volunteers poured into our city to help, including over 200 dedicated volunteers from the Arkansas State Baptist Convention Disaster Relief Team, the Arkansas Food Bank, the Salvation Army, and many more. The conditions of the pandemic made this situation even worse, and many organizations could not even come to our aid because of rules that prevented them from doing so. However, many people did show up and made a great sacrifice and personal risk and helped us in one of our worst hours. I don't have time here to adequately mention or thank every organization or volunteer or person locally or group locally who really went out of their way, or all of our city employees who went out of their way, door to door delivering food and water. But it was a week that saw power outages over 7 days, water, internet, and other utility services disrupted, and more. And I cannot describe my relief when I saw all of you out helping our community. I want to express how deeply grateful we are to those who gave so freely to their fellow man during this crisis. After an exhaustive process of cataloging every fallen tree and home impacted, the governor declared this event an Arkansas national disaster, and eventually we were included in the president's nationally declared disaster, making us eligible for additional funds from FEMA. We had many other disasters all year long, beginning with unusual flash floodings in the spring, record heat in the summer, and then ending with a record amount of snow and ice in the winter, all of which provided its own unique set of challenges. In June, violent protests erupted in our cities throughout the country, our state, and region in response to multiple cases of what seemed clearly to be racially motivated police brutality and abuse on the part of white officers, especially, leading even to death in some cases. My response as mayor was to reach out to leaders in our local African American community, including many young people organizing a local march, to listen and to open lines of communication. Our meetings resulted in many healthy exchanges, and positive change came from that, including a citywide day of prayer and reflection, the first ever city established official holiday recognizing Juneteenth, and especially the establishment of the Racial Equity Task Force, chaired by Ms. Naomi Cottams and made up of a diverse group of leading citizens. This task force has made many recommendations that have been adopted by the City Council, including local ordinances and resolutions on hate crime laws, adoption of a new police policy manual, which we've been trying to do now for over 3 years, the creation of a financial mentorship program with both of our local banks, and many, many things they are doing now and things to come. I'm very proud of the work of Chairperson Cottams in this task force, as we all should be. The march held locally was held peacefully and without danger or lack of respect for public safety and property. I'm proud that our city has grown from what is a troubled history to one of racial healing and growth. We have demonstrated to others that even though we still have far to go, we have also already come a long way. This experience made me proud to represent you as your mayor. I am confident that we will continue to see growth on these issues through our task force and in many other ways as well. On the evening of November 12, 2020, Officer Travis Wallace of the Helena-West Police Department was gunned down and murdered in the commission of his duty to protect and serve our city. He was chasing down a lead about a suspect from a gun crime a week earlier. Officer Wallace located the suspect, but was killed at close range while trying to apprehend that suspect. That suspect is now in Arkansas custody, awaiting justice along with his accomplice. His death in the line of duty was the first death by a police officer here in over 20 years. Our community responded once again with overwhelming support for the memory of Officer Wallace, his family members, his loved ones, and his colleagues in blue. Chief Patrick Smith called me that night in tears for his fallen officer. This was not the first time Chief Smith had to deal with this. He had, as a police officer for the Memphis Police Department, he had colleagues shot down before. He immediately called his colleagues at the former colleagues at the Memphis Police Department and others across Arkansas and asked them to help him coordinate what I would have to say is one of the most meaningful things I've ever witnessed or participated in my life. It was one of many moving celebrations and show of support, including a sea of blue caravan across the city, the candlelight vigil at the police station, the funeral itself, procession to the cemetery, and of course the burial cemetery with bagpipes, a 21-gun salute, and the presentation to the family. Governor Hutchinson flew down to meet with the family. Later, Senator Keith Ingram, Representative David Tollett, and Representative Reginald Murdoch would honor his sacrifice before the Arkansas legislature. As I said at the time, I hope the sacrifice of Officer Wallace serves as a day of reckoning for us here regarding the challenges of gun crime on our streets, and that we resolve to fight this evil lurking among us as bravely as did Officer Wallace, who gave his own life for our safety. In the last year, we have had 3 boil orders declared by the Arkansas Health Department for our West Helena Water and Sewer Utility Company. Each time we have a boil order, businesses lose money, residents are inconvenienced, and confidence in our water supply and treatment is severely damaged. In the two cases, large sections of our city went without water at all, sometimes for days. This is simply inexcusable, especially since just last year, the city raised water rates on customers. What are we doing about it? First, we're in the process of making dramatic management changes at the water company. That's already begun. Secondly, I have declared 2 water emergencies that allowed us to make many changes immediately to help prevent future boil orders and shortages. Thirdly, we have begun the process of implementing long overdue maintenance and infrastructure problems and solutions with our system. Finally, we are working with outside assistance to plan a longer-term replacement of our most critical weaknesses in our aging water and sewer lines. We are also evaluating a better customer service response system to improve our customers' experience with billing, water leaks, and more. We have made much progress in the last year regarding the stopping of water leaks, but we've had major setbacks with historic low temperatures this winter that resulted in a new set of even more serious leaks. The good news, thanks to the new rates that are more in line with other cities, is that we're no longer losing $1 million a year at the water and sewer company like we were when I became mayor. Instead, we are now paying old debts and have transitioned into new relationships with groups like the Arkansas Rural Water Association and others to move forward on solving our problems with new initiatives that they and others have begun. For example, in the last year, the Delta Regional Authority and the National Resources Commission have approved additional funding that allowed us to fully complete the restoration of the Helena sewer treatment ponds south of town. That project, a long-term project, was once in danger of becoming a national news story if untreated raw sewage made it to the Mississippi River. Moreover, the agreement with integrity begun under my predecessor, Mayor Jay Hollowell, has been completed. As a result, last year, together, he and I flipped the switch on what is the largest solar field powering a municipal water company in Arkansas today. We have also completed the new hydromatic booster station for those living in South Helena, including Military Road, Arkansas Street, in that area, which has experienced many, many water pressure issues. A year of opportunity. Even in a year of back-to-back crises, we have managed to find opportunity. For example, we were disappointed to see the closing of the newly opened Dragon Woodland hardwood processing plant, scuttled in part due to the closing of ports in China after the beginning of the pandemic. However, we later regained the 40 or so jobs lost when Dragon Woodland closed. Envirotech, located at the Helena Harbor, expanded to over 100 jobs in response to the nationwide demand for production of more hand sanitizer due to the pandemic. Likewise, even though more people than ever began to shop online in response to COVID-19, new laws in Arkansas are requiring the collection of local sales taxes from online shoppers resulted in more revenue for the city, not less. We continue to see sales tax growth from the new regional marijuana dispensary on the bypass, and we're also able to see the increase of new businesses, including 2 food and health drink retail restaurants, the first offering of Delta Dirt Distillery, which is about to open tomorrow every day, a clothing store off Cherry Street, and more. Although we lost several historic structures, we also saw investments in such historic landmarks as the Tappan Pillow Home by Lane and Kevin Berry, the couple behind our Restoration Nation, and a renewed effort and intention to finally focus on what is left of Centennial Church for possible future uses and designations. The devastation we saw on Cherry Street has galvanized others to finally refocus efforts on saving perhaps our most significant place that defines to others who we are. Our hospitality industry has taken a big hit here, as it has everywhere. But at the same time, people all over the nation have made it clear they want to continue our biggest event, the King Biscuit Blues Festival, donating even for the virtual event held in place of the actual live event. We also hit a home run with a new source of national and statewide local tourism, taking our catfish tournaments to a new level of recognition as one of the best big fish destinations in the country. The legendary Bill Dance hosted one of his tournaments here. Even with the many state-mandated COVID-19 restrictions on the crowd, Dance was so happy with the response. Not only is he coming back this year, he has filmed 2 segments on Helena in his worldwide syndicated ESPN fishing show. He has also helped me promote Helena as the focus of Big River catfishing on radio and statewide sports stories and other venues. Helena is already benefiting from this new industry, which sees the average expenditure of over $2,500 per tournament entry in our local economy. Our Helena Tourism and Promotion Board deserves lots of credit for recognizing early the benefits of building a new recreation and tourism brand for our city and helping to fund these tournaments accordingly. Finally, we have also begun a new partnership with the City of Marion and the Sultana Disaster Museum, being planned as a national and international destination. Over $100,000 has already been pledged on behalf of our community, which will drive tourists here to see new kiosks and exhibits both in Marion at the museum and here in Helena, which features prominently in the Sultana story. Although we saw many challenges with racial issues, I'm proud that our city is being recognized not as one filled with racial strife, but as a city that has learned from our troubled history and is now confronting honestly and fairly with issues of diversity. It is my hope that companies and individuals looking to invest here, move here, or expand here will begin to see us not for our past problems, but as the progressive, modern, and inclusive city we are seeking to become. We saw the completion of a modern and new airport runway. The State Highway Department and Atlas Asphalt have completed most of the resurfacing of Highway 49 business through town, a project that grew to be $7 million. It was approved after State Representative Chris Ritchie and I successfully lobbied the governor and Highway Commission Chairman Robert Moore Jr., who is a big friend of Helena, to include the Highway 49B project in the governor's new highway program. The finishing phase of that project should begin in the summer of 2021. And that is why the signs are still up around town. I get a lot of questions about that, but it's because it's not technically finished. Chairman Moore also agreed to my request that the commission begin a planning process for replacing the Helena Bridge with a new 4-lane bridge and include the possibility of a 4-lane from Brinkley all the way to Sardis, Mississippi, relieving traffic pressure on Interstate 40 and connecting it to Highway 1 South, Highway 61 in Mississippi, proposed to Interstate 69 and Interstate 55. That, along with all the recent progress and new designations at our Port Authority, will go a long way towards addressing future growth. I am very happy to say that the state of our financial health for the city of Helena-West Helena is sound, and that the last year saw continued improvement from where we were when I came into office in January 2019. Here are the numbers. In 2020, Arkansas Legislative Audit confirmed in our fiscal 2019 audit what I had already said publicly, that we have paid off our operating debts I inherited in 2019, confronted our long-term debts, and were no longer on the list of at-risk cities that we had been placed on the year before. This was the result of a lot of prudent and conservative fiscal management on the part of the administration, and sharing in that success should be all our elected officials, as well as our department heads, our employees, and of course you, our citizens, the taxpayers. This was a big achievement. In fiscal year 2020, we continued to see dramatic improvement in our financial status as a city. We ended the year with the second surplus in a row, with an end of year balance of $225,028.45. The audit for fiscal year 2020 is being conducted now, and as always, will be made public and on our website. For fiscal year 2021, we adopted a budget of approximately $8 million for the city and $2 million for the water and sewer department, which must be by law accounted separately. We approved it by the extended deadline the state requires. I am proud to say that thanks to a large part to good thanks in large part to good financial stewardship in 2019 and 2020, I was able to include a cost of living increase of 3% for every employee in the budget that I submitted, and that was included in the final approved budget. I also included raises in some specific areas based on merit, and the city council approved a COLA increase on top of the state mandated minimum wage. We completed an employee evaluation process this year and made other reforms to help improve retention, training, and recruitment for key city employees. I continue to hope the city council will restore the promotions and the raises that correspond to those promotions for both the police and the fire departments, as well as those for others that are recommended on merit. Thanks to funding from the CARES Act and the hard work by Chief of Staff Helen Halbert, who worked with the Arkansas Municipal League on our application process, we received approximately $450,000 in CARES Act relief one-time funding. Due to these funds, we were able to provide a one-time pandemic payment to our first responders and all city employees. Although eligible, I refused to accept a pandemic payment for myself, but I want to say that it was a very rewarding experience for me personally to hand each employee their pandemic check right at Christmas time when it was most needed, after a year in which most of our employees faced exposure to this virus on behalf of our citizens. CARES Act funds also help pay for technology updates long needed to protect us from future ransomware attacks and other common IT problems. It has also helped us pay for skycots and helped with a broad communication plan to get our city vaccinated and more. The first federal audit done in years came back demonstrating good financial stewardship of the federal funds we received. We were removed from the federal offset list of cities a year ago following my first visit to Washington as mayor. All of our audits are posted on our website. Actually, it was more than a year ago. But you can see those audits at www.hwh.ar.gov. We continue to brace ourselves for what could still be a downturn in local revenue due to another COVID-19 setback, and also due to the loss of almost $500,000 a year in sales tax revenue that was diverted by popular vote to the construction of the Phillips County Detention Center. We are concerned about the impact of an undercount of the 2020 census and how that impacts our finances. We remain optimistic, though, and continue to plan for the worst and hope for the best. Public safety. The Helena-West Police Department, using numbers from our RPS crime reporting system, which is the same system that the FBI criminal database uses, by the way. Last year, we had 12 homicides, which are 12 too many. That was the same number of homicides we had in 2019. So far this year, we have had no homicides compared to 1 homicide this time last year and 4 homicides this time 2 years ago. 8 of the 12 homicides have suspects that have been arrested and 4 are still under investigation. We work closely with the FBI, state police, and others to submit cases to the U.S. Attorney that has resulted in 7 federal indictments of local violent criminals involving weapons, drugs, and gang activity. Helena-West patrols responded to a total of 15,106 calls in 2020, down 16% from 17,923 calls responded to in 2019. Violent crime in 2019 fell by 35% compared to 2018. In 2020, violent crime fell another 14% compared to 2019. This contrasts with national statistics and frankly surprised me. Most places in the country have demonstrated an increase in violent crime this year, and experts connect it to the pandemic. But we avoided that in 2020, I'm proud to say, thanks to the hard work of our police department. The police department recovered 267 guns in 2020 compared to 181 weapons in 2019. We had our first gun buyback program. We've seized items including 1 kilogram of meth or ice, 65.6 grams of marijuana, 37.3 grams of prescription pills in 1 truck. We received a $36,000 grant from USDA, thanks to Chief Smith's grant writing, for the implementation of 3 Skycop pole cameras with gunshot recognition and tag readers. We replaced existing duty-issued weapons with newer Glock 17 generation 4.9 millimeter handguns. We've ordered a new fleet of police cars to replace aging and out of service police units, and they are due to arrive this summer. We've revised and implemented the departmental policy and procedure manual with the approval of the City Council, which we want to thank again Chairperson Cottams and the Racial Equity Task Force as well for their assistance on that, something we've been trying to do for 3 years. All employees of the department completed all state and departmental continuing education requirements for 2020. And I'm very proud to say that Chief Smith is the first chief in our history as a city, in either city, a former city, to complete the prestigious Northwestern University Staff and Command School. He graduated at the top of his class of 250 students from around the country and Europe. This is a tremendous achievement. It deserves celebration. And we are proud of you, Chief. And we're proud to have a chief of your caliber. Other numbers, the Arkansas Child Abuse Hotline calls were made for 12 reported cases compared to 16 last year, and 9 reported to DHS for child endangerment compared to 7 last year. In 2020, there were 79 narcotics and weapons cases and 79 arrests compared to 90 last year, 7 sexual crimes and 1 arrest compared to 17 in 2019. 16 robberies compared to 18 last year, 66 burglaries compared to 86 last year, 72 breaking or entering compared to 62 last year, with 22 arrests collectively compared to 10 last year. In 2020, we had 19 arsons with 4 arrests and 111 thefts with 10 arrests, 58 batteries and assaults with 12 arrests, and 63 forgeries and frauds with 8 arrests. Our Internal Affairs Division saw 13 complaints resulting in 5 founded cases, 8 unfounded, 1 exoneration, and 1 resolved inquiry. Overall, there have been 503 total felony incidents and 147 total felony arrests in 2020. Chief Smith has done an excellent job rebuilding our police department into a true 21st century police department. In addition, bringing on Assistant Chief James Mayfield is providing support for the department as we complete what has been a very difficult year. I cannot say enough how grateful I am for Chief Smith, the Assistant Chief Mayfield, and our men and women in blue. Thank you very much on behalf of a very grateful community. In the fire department, we saw some major leadership changes this year, but I'm happy to say we've ended with a very stable and steady professional fire department. Assistant Fire Chief Roderick Brown became our new fire chief in June, and DeMarcus Borum became our new assistant fire chief. We've completed many goals and continue to work towards a lower ISO rating to lower our insurance rates. Thanks to a generous donation from Partners Bank, we were finally able to complete the Cherry Street Station expansion to make room for the new ladder truck. Thank you so much, Partners Bank, and thank you for all you do. In 2020, 13 firemen were promoted, now becoming engineers, lieutenants, and captains. It is my hope that the City Council will soon restore to the budget the appropriations to go along with promotions and raises scheduled in my original budget. In March 2020, Fire Chief Roderick Brown received the Cleo Stoger Dunning's Leadership Award from the Mu Chi Omega Charter Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority incorporated, an important honor. Overall, in 2020, there were 650 alarm calls, including 150 structure fires, 34 vehicle fires, 52 grass fires, 126 medical calls, 39 motor vehicle accidents, 123 alarms, 8 control burns, and 118 sorted and miscellaneous other calls. In Public Works, in the last year, we have continued to combine our departments into one Public Works department in order to create efficiencies, save money, and also to build a more responsive and effective Public Works effort on your behalf through better training, cross-training, and better synergy between common goals. The director of the Helena-West Public Works Department is Bobby Jones and includes the street division, sanitation, and the Helena-West landfill. In the past year, Bobby has also been detailed to work with the Water and Sewer Department on a special team designed to get us caught up on a backlog of water leaks. He also assists on animal control, code enforcement, and more. Combining departments and cross-training has resulted in a large part of the savings the city has needed to get our budget problems under control. Combining department heads alone has saved us $55,000 a year, and another $50,000 if you include the Parks and Recreation Director position. Combining and cross-training 2 CDL positions, which prior to consolidating these departments, we had multiple drivers who were not cross-trained on multiple trucks, has saved us $62,400 a year. In addition, by delaying the hiring of a landfill manager after that vacancy, and with Mr. Jones overseeing activities until a new manager could be hired, we saved the city tens of thousands of dollars more. Even while saving money, however, we managed to do more with less, which is exactly what I asked of my department heads to do when I took office. I want to congratulate Mr. Jones, his deputies, and all those with whom he works for doing such a great job for our city. In sanitation, last year, the city purchased 3 used sanitation trucks at $26,000 in each. Initially, the plan was to purchase 2 new trucks, which would have cost over $225,000. Purchasing the used vehicles saved us over $147,000 in addition. We also purchased new trash cans finally, and are beginning to replace the older ones slowly as the other ones are being removed from service. This year was a major challenge for our street crews, especially regarding storm damage and downed trees. We also saw record low temperatures and freezing roads covered in ice and snow for days. At one point, I made a plea to local farmers to bring in their equipment to help us keep the roads clear. Our crews also never hesitated to help people get to the hospital or to get home health nurses to their patients. The resulting potholes continue to represent a problem. And we are working on these and other challenges, including the need to dig out and scour our ditches and drainage areas, among other things. Code, property demolition, and cleanup. The Public Works Department assisted the city and the Code Department with the demolition of over 30 properties in 2020, according to our reports. Also, multiple empty lots and code violating residents and businesses were required to comply with the law. Code Officer Greg Williams began to enforce local code laws on weekends for outside vendors that come here to operate businesses in empty parking lots out of their cars. Williams required them to shut down operations until being properly permitted like other local businesses. In addition, the additional focus on business permit collection, other fines and fees has increased our revenue to the city from the Code Department. Bobby Jones and the team of the water and the team at the water company has repaired over 100 leaks, some of which have been problems for over 8 years. We have many leaks to go, especially after the winter storms, and need to begin pricing total replacements of entire lengths of infrastructure in several places around our city. Unfortunately, the swimming program usually run by Mr. Womack and our Parks and Recreation program, I guess our only real Parks and Recreation program in previous years, in cooperation with other grants, nonprofits, profits was unable to go forward due to the pandemic. In addition, city parks and recreational programs were suspended. The North Helena Community Center has been reopened for limited use by after-school programs, and we hope to reopen it completely as soon as the pandemic conditions permit, along with all other parks and programs. The City Council and I have agreed to work together on a plan for parks and recreation going forward in anticipation of reopening parks and picking up where we left off on basketball programs for youth and much, much more. We also look forward to the return of our summer swimming pool program. In animal control, Code Officer Greg Williams continues to be our only licensed and trained officer on animal control and has been working double duty when called in on special cases requiring specific restraining methods. He has done an excellent job, even though he continues to operate with very limited resources for this area of the budget. We continue to implement a spay and neuter program for stray animals funded by a grant that I wrote shortly after taking office. To date, 14 animals have been spayed or neutered on our streets in the last few months of 2020. And we can continue the program until funds are exhausted or replaced. That doesn't sound like a lot at first, but according to the most reliable sources, one dog can produce up to 67,000 puppies in 6 years. 67,000. One female cat can produce 370,000 kittens in her lifetime. That represents a lot of sad cases removed from our streets in the future. We'll continue that program and we need to do much, much more, but it's not a bad start. The City Council has funded the Public Works Department to help us provide a safe and humane retention area for dogs picked up by the city so that it can begin once again to provide the services required by law to our citizens. I look forward to seeing that completed, or at least nearly completed this year. The landfill is owned and operated by the city. We are the landfill for 3 counties, governed in part by the East Arkansas Solid Waste District, and it is a major source of income for our city. It brings in approximately $1.2 million a year with over 33 tons of waste per year. It is also one of the largest landfills in Arkansas with the most room for future expansion. Transitions have been the main issues at the landfill this year. Long-term landfill manager Bob Gaston retired, and we began to turn a new chapter. In addition, with COVID-19, the Easter storms, winter storms, the need to complete our new cell in a timely manner, the need to keep our customers happy, and more, we have been very, very busy. I'm happy to report, however, that longtime Fire Chief Regent Wilson agreed to return from retirement in the new capacity as our new landfill manager. He brings with him decades of experience running both the department as well as heavy equipment. Since we have now purchased a new dozer and another used dozer, it is more important than ever to get our landfill to the place where we want it to be on equipment maintenance with new services, better road and hauling conditions, and much, much more. Our Helena-West Airport Commission supports itself largely from lease revenue and is mostly independently supported and operated. In 2020, the commission completed the $5 million new runway funded by a federal FAA grant that staff and commissioners have been working on for many, many years. Furthermore, the old hangar that has remained in a burned out state for 10 years has finally been removed, as I promised it would be last year. In addition, the board has reorganized under new chairman, Eddie Schiffler. I want to thank Johnny Broom, our outgoing chairman, who has moved away in retirement. Johnny was a longtime leader of our report and is still helping, even though no longer on the board. Also, we are excited about new board member, Zipporah Mundy, who has a lifelong passion and interest in aviation. Our A&P Commission is funded by the hospitality tax on hotels, motels, and restaurants. A&P Commission revenue is intended to improve tourism and promote our city. Local attorney and city councilman Don Etherly is the new chair of the A&P Commission, and new members have also joined. Due to the pandemic, activities have been slow this past year. However, the Commission's financial support of the Bill Dance Catfish Tournament, the billboards promoting it, and the other related matters have demonstrated more good things to come from this Commission as they gear up for a more active year. We are happy that the American Duchess and American Queen are returning this year to our port city, including the hundreds of visitors they bring to our shores. They have also agreed to land here during weekdays to enhance the local economic impact on our city. Helena-West Helena Port Authority and Director John Edwards continues to work on economic prospects, landing us as a federally designated port, which is a major achievement, and yet also another recent infrastructure grant to help continue the improvements of access to our port and utility services for our port employers who are there now and prospects for the future. The Phillips County Chamber of Commerce, Thrive Incorporated, Arkansas Workforce Services, and the UA Phillips Community College programs help our local companies and small businesses. This past year saw the beginning of a very exciting job hiring initiative with Federal Express. Both FedEx Air and FedEx Ground have selected us as one of a small number of Delta communities for which to provide public transportation to those willing and eligible to work at their facilities. So far, over 30 local people have been hired, have access to free FedEx transportation, and are able to continue to live in our city and keep good employment with good pay and benefits at Federal Express. We have held 2 successful FedEx job fairs, and FedEx Ground just asked me to help host a third. Officials there assure us that the requirements for working at FedEx Ground will be a good fit for our community, and that they will provide 100% of the transportation from our city to their facility at no cost to the city or the employee. And finally, I'm excited that Phillips College has decided to host a job fair also for our local plants, as well as other plants in the region. We want to build jobs at home, but if we must, we will take people to the jobs as long as they remain a part of our community. In conclusion, last year, I pointed out that we could not yet really know what we were about to face. I was speaking about the pandemic, but I had no idea just how many other challenges and crises we were also about to face. I also quoted Hemingway saying that whatever happened, it was my hope that we would be stronger in the broken places. Today, we have indeed emerged stronger in the broken places. We have emerged more resilient people, more unified than before. I hope that these challenges faced together as a community also make us stronger as a community. I hope that somewhere in the shared hardship of the past year, we find a common hope for our future. In that spirit, I declare the state of our city in 2021 as good, with much promise, and yet with much work still left for us to do. Thank you. Good night.